Impact segment tonight. As you know, the Obama administration is mostly liberal and the American media is ardently secular. Now, the combination means marriage, abortion, and other moral issues are undergoing change. That has angered some religious leaders, and they have issued a 4,700-word manifesto called the Manhattan Declaration, a call of Christian conscience. The document encourages religious Americans to fight back, and in some cases even break the law. Joining us now from Florida to analyze, Ann Coulter, whose book, Guilty, Liberal Victims and Their Assault on America, is now out in paperback. You know, your book and this manifesto have a lot in common, but we were surprised when the Archbishop of New York, Dolan, and other big religious leaders basically said, look, we got to become more aggressive here, we the people of faith, and we may even have to break the law. Were you surprised about that?
No, it's a fantastic statement. I didn't know about it until you sent it to me today. But of course, anything written by Chuck Colson and Robert George will be fantastic. The civil disobedience parts of it are pretty narrow. It's for saying that we won't participate as doctors, nurses, hospitals in euthanasia, in abortion. Churches won't participate in same-sex marriage or in denouncing condemning homosexuality in the practice of their faith. Most people aren't called on as Christians to give up their lives, to give up money, to suffer in prison. Certainly not in America. It's amazing that this document is even necessary, but it might wake up some of the Christian churches and Christian ministers and priests who have been silent as the culture gets more and more corrupt, and they're off talking about, if anything, you know, something fashionable like the poor or AIDS in Africa.
Excuse me. Tomorrow night, our lead story is Bishop Tobin from Rhode Island, who has called out Congressman Kennedy and said you can't receive communion because you're such an advocate for abortion. He's going to be on a Factor in an exclusive tomorrow. So we're starting to see now a bubbling up of the Catholic Church and in combination with evangelical Protestants to say enough's enough. But I'm wondering what the tipping point was, because for years, you didn't hear any of this. The secular media ran wild without challenge. Now we have a liberal Obama administration that wants to institute a lot of very liberal policies on abortion, gay marriage, and et cetera. And now, are they too late? Is the religious community too late?
I hope not. But you're right about what is it that set it off now. Right. It really is like the proverbial frog in the boiling water. It has been so incremental, so constant. And some of these churches all along have been speaking out on the cultural crisis around us, but some have been absolutely mum about it. And it's shameful. I'd like to know which ministers and priests refused to sign this statement. I mean, this is something Christians are sometimes correctly and sometimes incorrectly criticized for not doing enough to stop the Holocaust, not doing enough to stop slavery. Totally false in the case of slavery. Individual Christians were magnificent in the Holocaust. The church was a little slow to recognize it. The civil
in
rights
Germany,
movement,
the church
heavily
in Germany
Christians.
is interestingly enough, the Vatican was slow, but in Germany, Catholics formed the main opposition to Adolf Hitler. And they were brutalized across the board. Now, there was some quislings that went along with it, but the Catholic Church in Germany, a story that really has been told, was ardently
and even
opposed.
More so in even more so in Poland, and of course,
but let me ask you this. Here's what I think happened. Here's what I think happened.
Wait. At churches not doing this now, when Christopher Hitchens, the atheist, can condemn Christian churches for not speaking out more on the Bill Clinton treating an intern like an ashtray, and he's right about that, then there's something wrong with the churches, and they aren't responding. And when people can be shocked...
Individual indiscretions have never really been the target, and I get into this with the bishop tomorrow as well, of religious leaders. But here's what I think tipped it, and I want to get your opinion. Here's what I think tipped it. I think it's the abortion option in the health care bill that is not going to go through, but so many Democrats want it to go through, which would force all Americans, even pro-life Americans, to fund through their taxpayer dollars abortions. I think that's what lit the fuse for Dolan here in New York and the others put out this manifesto. I'll give you the last word.
That may be part of it. I think you'd have to check with Robert George and Colson, but I do think it's a lot more than that. I mean, when the world is shocked at My Single Mothers chapter, you could have asked the town imbecile what a single mother should do 30 years ago, and he'd say have a shotgun marriage or give it up for adoption. When I present obvious facts about single motherhood, and that is a shocking stance to take, where are the churches on a crumbling moral culture in this society?
They don't like to do that. They don't like to do that.
Yeah, because they're cowards.
Well, I don't know about that. You know, there's a lot of things
in the... The ones who I'm talking about.
Well, I'll tell you what. There's a lot of things in the Bible that say you don't make individual judgments. That's the deities. He, without sin, cast the first stone, and nobody throws the stone. There's a lot of that. Real quick, go ahead.
I'm sure the slave owners liked quoting that.
No, it comes critical mass.
It's time for the churches to stand up and react.
Right.
And I think it's also gay marriage. It's not just abortion. It's the endless push for gay marriage.
All right, Ann. Thanks for staying with us. I'm Bill O'Reilly. In the Weekdays with Bernie segment tonight, 2 hot topics: why the media continues to be so upset over Sarah Palin, and Bill Moyers calling it quits on PBS. With us now, Fox News analyst Bernie Goldberg here in New York City. And I'll start with Governor Palin and the bigger issue of, is the right in America resurgent?
Yeah, it is. I mean, a few months ago, they were writing books about how the right is dead, conservative is dead. It is, but it isn't not primarily because of Sarah Palin and not primarily because of Glenn Beck. It's primarily because of Barack Obama.
In what way? Why is that lighting the fuse?
Because to many people on the right, and I think many people who call themselves moderates, it's one mistake after another. And he is lighting the fire on the right.
But if you don't like a politician or a president, and the president's not living up to your expectation, why would you go into an ideology? Why wouldn't you say, well, we don't really like him, but we don't really like the right either?
Well, maybe they don't like the right if they stop and think about it, but you have to make a choice in our system. You know, if you don't like Obama, the alternative starts to look a lot more attractive.
But what is the alternative? Is it Sarah Palin?
I don't think so. And the reason I don't think so is because while I have never seen a politician, not since Ronald Reagan anyway, but maybe even counting Ronald Reagan, who had the passionate supporters that she does.
Yes.
But liberals detest her,
right,
which we know. Moderates are not big fans of hers, and as you pointed out correctly, and it's very important, a lot of conservatives don't like her either.
But she did well with the interview, I thought, with me.
She did well in the interview in terms of certainly coming off as likable. And if you're not likable in politics, everything else doesn't matter. Nothing else matters.
Well, Nixon proved that you don't have to be likable to win. You just have to be in the right place at the right time.
Well, if you're asking me for a prediction, I don't think she's going to be in the right place at the right time, anytime.
But I think she wants to be.
I'm not sure. I'm not sure. I don't know. But what fascinates me is that how much a lot of liberals hate her. I mean, I'm fascinated by that.
Well, they hate her because she's an attractive woman who is not towing the pro-choice line. It's primarily in their wheelhouse.
Everybody I've spoken to gives me the same answer to the question about Sarah Palin. Everybody. And they don't even know each other, all these people. And the answer is, she's not smart. She's another George Bush. But the level of hatred doesn't match that.
No, it doesn't match that.
I think she came very close to the answer. And that is that she is a stand-in for middle Americans.
Yeah, for the unwashed masses.
Exactly. Right. And I think who the elite in this country, the liberal elite, really dislike.
They fear.
They don't like middle Americans. They think that
they don't like them because they fear them.
Well,
if they were ever mobilized.
Well, sure, but they also don't like them because they eat at Red Lobster. They like to
all
bowl.
that other stuff. They look down on their nose at them.
Exactly.
Right.
They look down their elite liberal noses at them, and they don't like them. And Sarah Palin is that person incarnate.
You know, I got to tell you something. I eat at Red Lobster. I like the lobster.
Well, that's
and
good.
they give you lots of shrimp.
That's
for free, unlimited. I eat them. Okay.